मार्का-ए-हक का 1 साल मुकम्मल होने पर मुल्क भर में मुख्तलिफ तकरीब जारी हैं। ऐसी ही एक तकरीब हो रही है इस्लामाबाद में और खिताब कर रहे हैं इस तकरीब से वफाकी वज़ीर इत्तलात अता तारर।
Terrorist camps, and it was a terrorist hideout where terrorists were being trained, allegedly. So we wasted no time. We took a delegation of journalists to that very place to show them that business was going on as usual. There was a public school, there were shepherds, there were people who were talking to each other, and we exposed India's propaganda during that visit. And this visit was so successful that subsequently we had planned to visit Muridke and Bahawalpur the following day. And before we could take our flight to Lahore and travel to Muridke and then go to Bahawalpur, where India had alleged there were other terrorist activities going on that very night came a cowardly attack from our eastern neighbor. Now, when this whole episode started, India's whole premise of aggression was based on propaganda and fiction. What was our response in the strategic narrative domain? Because you see, before the actual battle comes the battle of narratives. And it is extremely important to give out the right information at the right time to the right audience. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to narrative, because every audience has a different mode of communication. And you must adapt to the particular mode of communication which is required for your target audience. So the first step, because India has always been in a habit of conducting false flag operations. There's a history of false flag operations which we've seen. And these false flag operations are used as a means for aggression and for attacking Pakistan. Because till date, after 78 years, almost 8 decades now, India still has trouble digesting the two-nation theory. Because the creation of Pakistan, with every passing day, is gaining more strength. The basis for the creation of Pakistan, the two-nation theory, is getting stronger with every passing day. And we've seen the rise of Hindutva ideology across our eastern border. We've seen minorities being persecuted. So when it came to the strategic narrative, what was our first and foremost reaction? The first and foremost reaction and the first and foremost narrative that we built was that India is in a habit of internalizing its external issues and externalizing its internal issues. Now, terrorism is India's internal issue. It's not an external issue. On the other hand, the Kashmir dispute, the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, is an external issue because it is an international dispute. And as per the UN Security Council resolutions, there is supposed to be a plebiscite. The people, the indigenous people, the oppressed people of Jammu and Kashmir have a right to self-determination. So that's an external issue. Now, when a state which is oppressive in nature, a state which does not believe in giving rights to its minorities, a state which thrives on the ideology of religious extremism and right-wing politics and lacks objective clarity, lacks strategic clarity, that state will always rely on false narrative to further its objectives. So when I say that India is promoting terrorism, I have justification, I have evidence to say so. We see transnational regression, we see transnational assassinations taking place. of Sikhs. You must all be familiar with the case of Hardeep Singh Najjar in Canada. So these transnational assassinations which are taking place in US, Canada, and the UK, there is an ideology behind it. And that ideology is an ideology of terrorism. So the difference between India and Pakistan when it comes to fighting extremism, when it comes to fighting terrorism is that we are a frontline state against terrorism. No other nation can claim or has to its credit sacrifices that Pakistan has made in this war against terrorism. So, starting from our armed forces, no other country has a higher officer to soldier mortality ratio. The amount of officers that get martyred is the highest. So our officers lead from the front. They motivate their jawans and their soldiers and lay down their lives for the motherland. So you have the armed forces at one end, and then you have law enforcement agencies, you have the police, and you have innocent children. Who can forget the APS attack? So when I say that no other country has to its credit the amount of sacrifices, the amount of blood that Pakistan has given in the war against terrorism, I have evidence to substantiate my argument. And being the frontline state, even our children have given sacrifices. And when it comes to assessing the economic losses, they run into hundreds of billions of dollars. So when one Pakistani lays down his or her life for the country, yes, it's for the country, but it's also to make the world a safer place, because had it not been for these sacrifices, these terrorists would have been loitering the capitals of the world. So it's an established fact that Pakistan is combating terrorism. And it's an established fact that India is promoting terrorism. So I've talked about the Sikhs, I've talked about Hardeep Singh Najjar. But what about Kulbhushan Yadav? When it comes to the internal security of Pakistan, India can make a lot of movies, yes. They can provide a lot of entertainment. But when it comes to the harsh realities and the ground realities, we not only have captured their spies, but we have legally proven our case at international forums. Coming back to the relevance of this topic today, our first and foremost objective was to tell the world that Pakistan believes in peace, Pakistan is combating terrorism, and India has always promoted terrorism, because they've always spun this argument around on Pakistan. That, Pakistan does cross-border terrorism. And the way this Pelgam episode was carried out, it is not only absurd, but it's ridiculous the way they built their narrative around Pelgam. The FIR of the Pelgam incident being registered after 10 minutes of the incident taking place. Security not being there at this tourist location. The line of control being more than 100 kilometers away from the Pelgam area. So if an infiltration was to take place, what kind of defense did they have that the so-called terrorists penetrated hundreds of kilometers into their territory and they did not find out? So this raises a lot of questions as to their stance. And to be honest, the edge that we got in the narrative domain was when our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Sahab addressed the cadets at PMA Kakul, and he said that we are ready for an independent, transparent, impartial inquiry into the Pelgam incident. 1 year on, India has nothing to say. India has no narrative. Every time we raise the issue of the Pelgam false flag operation, we see no response, because there is none. There is no evidence. So you see, the truth always prevails. The truth is a powerful tool when it comes to building narratives. So on one hand, we were able to prove that we are fighting terrorism and India is promoting terrorism. On the other hand, we had the Pelgam incident, to which India had no response. And from there onwards, we got an edge in the narrative domain. This edge that we had in the narrative domain would not have been possible without unity, cohesion, and synergy. And when I talk about synergy, the civil-military relations being ideal, number one. We had a complete unity of thought and action. So if I talk about my ministry, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, we were in constant touch with the ISPR and we were receiving information in real time. And we were sharing information and making joint narratives. So I think synergy was of prime importance. And we saw this synergy, this unity trickle down at all levels. We saw the people of Pakistan standing behind the government, standing behind the armed forces. As information minister, when I took to the floor of the House during the war and during the Indian aggression when they attacked Pakistan without justifiable cause, I was proud to have stated that today, across the political divide, we are united. Today, there is no political difference in this parliament, and we are sending out a single message to our enemy that we are united and we are, alhamdulillah, when we are united, we are a force to be reckoned with. So that message of unity went out, it trickled down, and I must also acknowledge the people of Pakistan. The way they fought this narrative war and grown up with a certain sense of patriotism, I did not know how the Gen Z would react to the situation. But I tell you, the Gen Z of Pakistan were at the top of their game. They passed with flying colors. Why? Because they were innovative. They came up with memes. The whole world is now looking at two nuclear nations on the brink of war, fighting a war. You have missiles flying, you have drones coming in, and you see this young generation posting memes that if you come to Lahore, do not ask for directions, you will surely get lost. And you have, so we had people from the younger generation taking to the social media and creating a new battle. And what happened when they created this new battle, the Gen Z battle or the social media meme war? The entire attention of the Indian media was diverted towards that meme war, and they were saying, what kind of people are these? There's a serious business going on. You have a full-blown war at your hands, and you have the young generation of Pakistan making fun of India in their own way and creating humor, creating satire, creating memes. So we must, when we are commemorating this 1 year of Marka-e-Haq, we must pay tribute to the Gen Z of Pakistan, to the younger generation of Pakistan for doing a fabulous job when it came to the narrative building. The Pakistani media channels, when compared with the Indian media channels, Pakistani journalists, Pakistani anchors, I must pay my compliments because they were very mature, they were very responsible, and they avoided sensationalism. So when we used to put on Indian channels, there was a lot of dramatization going on. There was a theater of sorts. And when our narrative got too much for them to digest, which it always does, because they don't have an appetite for truth. When you don't have an appetite for truth, you often get indigestion. So what happened? They banned our YouTube channels. Next challenge that I was faced was, should we ban their YouTube channels? I was very clear. The moment my team came to me and said, "Ki sir, kya karna hai? Should we ban their channels?" I said, absolutely not. Why? There is such good humor going on. There is such good comedy going on that in this whole stress of war, there is a sigh of relief coming from them. So please do not ban their channels. Let our people watch the level that they can stoop down to. And we saw them stoop down to the lowest level that they could. And my team came up with a strategy. They said, इन्होंने हमारे YouTube बंद किया है, हम अपना YouTube इनके मुल्क में चलाएंगे. And I said, how's that? They said, what we will do is, we will put up our patriotic songs, our military anthems, by geotagging the Indian locations, and every time an Indian citizen would open their YouTube, you would see the Pakistani flag or the Pakistani armed forces, you would see our JF-17 Thunder, you would see all kinds of images on that YouTube channel. And by evening, every Indian citizen was criticizing their government that what is going on, that we are seeing Pakistani images on our YouTube. We focused on the truth. We focused on an in-depth strategy. We focused on unity, synergy, and cohesion. And we focused on delivering the right information at the right platforms. So, even in social media, you cannot have the content you post on TikTok being posted on X. You cannot have the content you post on X being posted on Instagram. So every social media platform has its own dynamics, and we understood that. So whatever strategy was being made, it was being made very, very specifically. For every platform, for every forum, we had a strategy which was well made, which was based on the truth, and we told the world our story the right way. In conclusion, I would like to say that it is a moment of immense pride for us 1 year on, because that victory has been amplified in so many ways that today we stand tall as Pakistanis by the grace of Almighty. The world recognizes our efforts, the world sees us as a serious country, and the world acknowledges our efforts. And I think that is something which this war has given us 1 year on. And inshallah ta'ala, by the grace of Almighty, we will continue to fight India's propaganda. And as I said, there is complete cohesion between the civil military leadership, where the Prime Minister has a vision, where Field Marshal Saeed Asim Munir, his strategy, his efforts, even his diplomatic efforts are now bearing fruit. So we must also commend our leadership, which has made immense efforts to bring the country where it is today. And with this strategy, I think the sky is the limit, and we will, inshallah ta'ala, even economically reach a place which Pakistan truly deserves, because Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, now is a force to be reckoned with, and we are here to stay, and we will make our mark internationally. Thank you very much, Pakistan. Hamesha Zindabad.
मार्का-ए-हक में पाकिस्तान की कामयाबी को 1 साल मुकम्मल होने पर इस्लामाबाद में तकरीब का इनेकाद किया गया है और वज़ीर इत्तलात अता तारर इस तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे हैं।
मुल्क भर में तकरीबात जारी हैं। जियो न्यूज़ की भी बुलेटिन्स में खुसूसी नशियात का हिस्सा आप देखते रहेंगे।